Not sure it's working. Don't think so.
It is now.
Yep. It is? Okay. Thanks, Mr. Chairman. As the chairman did, I'd like to start with a word of process. First, my thanks to him for the way we're proceeding. I think we've shown that even though we deal with some pretty tough issues and we have some pretty big ideological differences sometimes on this committee, that we can work together, and sometimes we agree fundamentally at the beginning. For example, on finding a way to track and trace 4 billion prescriptions every year, on dealing with accountability and compounding pharmacies, on mental health. Already this year we've approved bills and we've agreed on them. Here we have a disagreement, at the beginning anyway, but the chairman and I have agreed on a way to proceed, because if we can't agree at the beginning, maybe we can agree at the end of the process. So what our goal today is to move forward with competing proposals, having good amendments and good discussions, move the bill to the floor in whatever form it comes out of committee. If we can then bring it up on the floor and have the same kind of debate with amendments, I would be in favor of moving ahead and see what kind of bill we can get there. The House of Representatives is moving ahead at the same time with its version. May be different than what comes out of here, but we have a procedure called the conference. Hadn't been used much lately, but the idea is to throw both ideas into a conference, and then at the end we can make a final decision and see whether we agree. I hope we follow that, because I agree with the chairman. It's time for us to do our job and reauthorize No Child Left Behind. We're Elementary and Secondary Education Act. We're 6 years late. So I thank him for this process. Second, if I could just mention particularly my Republican colleagues about how amendments will work. As the chairman said, we'll go through the titles. We've given him a suggested list of the first 10 amendments that we'd like to offer. And to go quickly over those, I'll offer a substitute at first. That'll be the first Republican amendment. The amendments will alternate back and forth. So you see, that'll take a little time. As I understand it from the chairman, any senator is free to talk on any amendments, although we'd like to move on ahead as expeditiously as possible. So what I would encourage our colleagues to be involved in more than just the amendment they offer. Senator Enzi has the second Republican amendment on state and local control. Then I have one on teacher evaluation. Then I have one on Title II funds following the child to public schools. Senator Scott has one on standards and tests. Senator Burr on flexibility. Senator Paul on Title I money following children to public and private schools. Flexible standards and tests, Senator Isaacson on burdensome reporting requirements, and Senator Roberts on the Secretary's waiver authority. So that's the order in which we'll start, and there could be other amendments after that. Does that sound correct, Mr. Chairman? Thanks. So that's what we'll do, and if any of you have to leave or come back, we'll work around that and try to make time to suit your schedules. Mr. Chairman, over the last decade, the United States Department of Education has become so congested with federal mandates that it has become, in effect, a national school board. If you remember the childhood game Mother May I, then you'll have a pretty good sense of how the process works today. States must come to Washington for approval of their plans to educate 50 million children in 100,000 public schools. During this discussion, you'll hear me mention those 100,000 public schools many times, because every time we make a rule here in our wisdom, it affects 50 million children in 100,000 public schools. It takes a lot of wisdom to be able to justify that. The congestion of mandates that I mentioned is caused by three things. One, No Child Left Behind. Two, Race to the Top. And three, the administration's use of waivers. First, No Child Left Behind imposed federal standards for what children had to know in reading and math, as well as federal definitions for whether schools or teachers were succeeding or failing. Second, Race to the Top, which was a competitive grant program, but the Secretary used it to essentially mandate that 46 states that applied, along with the District of Columbia, adopt Common Core standards and tests for their students in reading and math. It also mandated 4 turnaround models for failing schools and prescriptive teacher and principal evaluation plans. And then third, Congress' failure, our failure, to fix the problems with No Child Left Behind and to restrain the Secretary has allowed this administration to turn its waiver authority, where states are supposed to ask relief from unworkable requirements in the law, into a conditional process where the Secretary tells states what they have to do to obtain that relief. So to obtain a waiver, states have had to adopt Common Core standards and measures for students' performance in reading or math, federal definitions of how states should measure a school's performance, and prescriptive teacher and principal evaluation systems. So far, 47 states, plus the District of Columbia, have applied for these waivers, mostly because No Child Left Behind requirements have become so unworkable that the Secretary literally has had states over a barrel. So you've had mandates from No Child Left Behind. You've had the effective mandates through Race to the Top. And then 47 states were over a barrel, and they applied for waivers, and they received a number of mandates. Senate Democrats have offered a 1,150-page plan, which is before us here, that would not only freeze these mandates in place, but double down, creating more than 25 new programs as well as more than 150 new reporting requirements for which states and local school districts must secure approval from the Secretary of Education. Republicans propose to move in a different direction. We offer a 220-page plan. Here's our plan: to help children in public schools learn what they need to know and be able to do by restoring responsibility to states and communities and giving teachers and parents freedom, flexibility, and choice. We call it Every Child Ready for College or Career. Our plan emphasizes state and local decision-making. It puts Washington out of the business of deciding whether local schools are succeeding or failing, freeing all schools from meeting the adequate yearly progress mandate. It rejects the federal mandates that create a national school board, prohibiting the Education Secretary from prescribing standards or accountability systems for states. It continues the requirement that states have high standards and quality tests, but doesn't prescribe those standards from Washington. Our proposal makes it easier for states to offer low-income parents more choice in finding the right public school for their child. It gives teachers and principals more freedom by encouraging the expansion and replication of successful charter schools. It encourages states to create teacher and principal evaluation programs free of federal mandates. It offers states more flexibility in spending federal education dollars while cutting waste by consolidating 62 federal programs into 2 block grants. This is not a proposal just for Republicans. We believe this proposal represents the views and will attract the support of governors leading the charge for education reform, teachers who value the freedom to teach, parents who want more choices for their children, and state legislators who are working for better schools. Our proposal builds on 30 years of work by governors, legislators, school boards, teachers, and parents. Especially over the last decade, states have worked to raise their standards. Parents and communities have more information than ever before about how their students are performing thanks to reporting requirements and No Child Left Behind. The Democratic proposal is a Mother May I proposal. It establishes, in effect, a national school board. What such a proposal really says is they don't trust parents, they don't trust classroom teachers and states to care about and help educate their children, and they want someone in Washington to do it for them. We completely reject that. Our proposal places responsibility for helping our children learn squarely where it ought to be, on states and communities, and it does that by giving teachers and parents more freedom, flexibility, and choices. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.